And, you know, we're talking years and years away before we see anything done, even the part that has support.
Well, you're gonna keep spending the money until you get what you want?
Well, here we are, we've already spent a lot of money up to this point.
But I can assure you there is no one that's behind bringing this.
So that's where we're at today and what we're having the hearing for. And I hope that's consistent with what, you know.
We feel that DELDot got completely off track from the original intent of the resolution. We threatened to stop it, threatened to stop the funding for the whole total project. The governor was furious. It's the first time I have been called to the governor's office with being in the blue jacket. We got chewed out. Got chewed out by our governor. He was, we thought, completely off base. And as long as John and I and the rest of the Sussex County legislators are on this board, there will be no funding. And this letter says an important function of this is available funding.
Funding or not, we're still gonna secure corridor coming all the way down.
And this is
So
a
eventually,
this is a must
if they
to
have
get
all the
funding
permits,
for any
the road's gonna come
of the
through.
areas.
And what's,
Yes.
our land value is just gonna go down. Because there's gonna be a road built eventually, it might be 30 years, 40 years, 50 years, but sometime it's gonna be built. If
I
they
will not live
secure,
to see. I hope I live to see Millsboro.
Well, I hope my grandchildren might see it,
We've
you
been 13
know?
years getting it this far.
So
They said it'd be at least another 5 years even to get the Millsboro section.
but they still wanna put a corridor right through 3 of our farms.
Yes.
And the people will be in limbo for the next 30 or 40 years.
Yeah, 'cause that back
Because
to-
you've tied their property values up and their property up.
Right.
All
So-
because they wanna build a little road through Millsboro.
And we told you 3 years ago we didn't want it, so
Well, again, these are all, I mean, and I hear you. We need you to come to hearing, and that's what we're here for.
We need to get a notice about it. We have never got a notice about anything.
It's coming out, it's coming out, the hearings are still 3.5.
We never got a notice the first time, first round. Never.
and I was in the meeting, and I specifically asked the people in the quarter to be notified, and Monroe said, we don't want to notify anybody until we select a quarter because we don't want to unduly alarm them. And that's a perfect quote.
Jim,
You didn't send out a mailing to anybody.
Yes, we did, and we did a zip code mailing all night. We made sure, obviously, everyone whose property would be affected, but we went, I don't wanna say something that I'm not 100%, but a certain.
Well, how many times did we say no? Do we have to say, no, we don't want this until you hear us and stop it?
Well, ma'am, again, and I don't want to repeat, we understand that there are people who are not supportive of it, some people in this room, but there are a lot of people that are supportive of it. The purpose
Are
of
you gonna
this,
take their home?
because there's zero way, you know, that the state will be able to pay for something of this magnitude on its own. We want to be able to utilize federal resources.
We're not talking about a big magnitude project now, we're talking about a small project in Millsboro. That's what the problem is, the way I see it, the project was to take care of Millsboro, and we are not to even be involved in a big corridor that you want to save for the future. That's my thought that we had already resolved. So we don't have this big project you're talking about, we're talking about a small road to connect 24 to 113.
But it was not just focused on that one thing.
And you have a viable quarter 113 that was given to the state 20 years or 200 years ago that basically is still a viable quarter. So why throw that away to build a $800 million highway that nobody wants?
Here. I thought you all were state employees, but you almost sound like federal employees. I get confused how the federal process has gotten into this. I mean, say the citizens of Delaware just flat out say, we don't want any federal funding, but Millsboro needs the highway. So they build a toll road, and every person that drives on that road pays for the privilege to drive on that road and to keep the federal government out of it. Keep the federal government from seeing any further plans or details, and just build the road where it's needed.
Well, my
Does that
understanding,
fly? Does that make
I'm in no means an expert.
You to go online, or you can come and view this public document, you can read it online, you can spend as much time going through it as you want, come to the public hearing, any and every comment will be welcome, and, you know, we certainly want to hear what you have to say.
What do all these poor constituents in these neighborhoods that may not have access to the internet, how do they go and read that online if they didn't get it in the mail? How do they get this information available? Because not a lot of them, people have access to internet. You know, that's not something that's as common.
The document is available at, and Stacy, it should be there now, right? Is it? It's at Daxboro Town Hall, it's at libraries in the area, it's at the DELDot South District Headquarters, it's at DELDot up in Dover, each of the town halls, it's at Sussex County. So the physical hard copy is in a public location that anyone can go to and flip through it.
What if they don't have
Also-
transportation there?
And also, we will mail out a CD, and, you know, if someone, you know, wants, we will come and sit down with them if they need for us to come to sit down with them. So-
There are a lot of poor communities that this goes through because they had no resistance.
They don't even know.
They didn't even know about it, and you're telling them to go to, you know, you're gonna send them a CD.
Yeah.
Jim, all that's covered in the environmental document.
Two historic communities, two historic black communities have this highway, this super highway bisecting one of them, going very close to the other. I didn't think the federal government could get away with those kinds of things anymore.
Ma'am,
It remains in your
We
plan
have
as
to
it was
address that.
3 years ago. Also, we have an interchange proposed next to the rural high school, you know, half a mile from here. That's going to affect thousands of children for years to come. We have no choice except to go to this public hearing, to stay in touch with our legislators, to hopefully, you know, stay in touch with the press. They've been very good in the past with keeping us, you know, out there for people to hear our concerns. I'm discouraged because it's 3 years later and nothing has changed.
in the Millsboro area, it's not viable to be able to stay on alignment and accomplish the goals. that are-
It is in Georgetown. The Georgetown Working Group
Right.
chose that, so it's a matter of perception
Well,
rather than engineering, because you've got a tremendous median there in Millsboro. So
It's not.
I want someone, Secretary Batt or something, I mean, I think he needs to sit down with some legislators, and we need to make it very clear that there is no will to build this bypass south of the river at all. I want to make that very clear, because I feel like, I know what I heard in that meeting, and I've talked to Paul, I've talked to Greg, I've talked to Press, I've talked to Cliff, I talked to Mrs. Bennett, and that's what I've told my constituents, because that's what I was told. And I feel a little bit betrayed.
It's up to you guys and you guys, everyone here. If
Well, we're telling you right
And
now.
the instructions that we gave the governor that day to go ahead with this, and the Secretary of DELDot, was, if it goes south of Millsboro, it is to stay on alignment and not go off that. And that's why I was very concerned when I heard you say at that meeting that the preferred route was the blue route. The preferred route should have been on alignment, because that's what you were instructed to do.
All the way down.
From that day on, and that's not what you did.
Get them motions.
And that's what's got John and I both upset.
I left that meeting with the impression that, again, I understood what you guys were telling us. The impression I got was you had to show it to these people south of Millsboro to get the money from Millsboro, and that was the whole plan, and this part was dead. Now I'm hearing 50 or 60 years from now it may be built.
So to get the federal funding, you need to stay online past Millsboro, and then we'll probably never fund it statewide at that point. But you got these people all upset for one route that you weren't supposed to continue any longer.
We feel like you've just taken this blue and run with it, even though there's no support for it. You know, you
We made
haven't
it
listened
very
anyway.
plain that there would be no funding for the blue route. We made-
Wanted to complete this document, that's what we're doing, okay?
By whom? The federal government or our state legislature?
The
Our
secretary.
Secretary of DELDot.
I think some of the problem here.
Aren't we happy?
DELDot is
is getting federal money, and you're gonna hire an awful lot of people and pay a lot of people to get this done. So there's a lot of people in DELDot in favor of this, because you're gonna get a ton of people if this goes through.
Yes, I'm the Director of Public Relations for DELDot. And actually, I think Senator Hawker characterized the meeting pretty well. I think maybe where we're getting a little hung up is on the idea of the project being dead. I think what we talked about was that.
I think the term dead was used.
You're exactly right, but why did you make the blue route south of Millsboro different than online?
I believe on alignment was studied,
Online is part of the document, but
Because that's
when
what
we-
we said would never happen, would be no money for it, we went off and on.
And you know, I don't have an answer
Oh,
for you
yeah.
on that he had with the secretary, because the secretary's right with you. I mean, he was in the meetings. He also knows and understands there's no political will down here to do this part of the project. He's got that. But what the governor said was, if we can't go after this federal money on this project, then everything on the whole corridor is dead. We're not gonna do any of it, we're not gonna spend any more time on it. We want these millions of dollars in federal funds to begin construction on this project, actually not even begin construction, begin design, which is a 5-year process. We wouldn't even get the north.
These public hearings, again, we're gonna have to make this option
We
known.
made it very clear that that's the only one that we would accept. I don't know why they had done
we did study that alternative when we were studying all the various alternatives, and we compared the.
Decision was made to recommend the blue alternative as the recommended preferred alternative. I mean, that's just.
But you've just been told 3 years ago, they don't want it, so.
But isn't one of the recommended routes on alignment south of Millsboro?
Not recommended, it's one of the ones that was
No,
studied.
one of the ones studied.
Oh, absolutely.
One of the ones shown.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and Georgetown,
And that's the one we need to push into
right,
public hearing.
and Georgetown.
So nothing else is tied up.
Yeah, Georgetown said, we don't want this limited access highway, we want it modified on alignment. You listened to them, and that's what you've done through Georgetown.
You said public comment, blue route. How does public comment leave you with the blue route as your preferred alternative? I understand there's other factors at play, but public comment is one of them, and, you know, it sounds like the preferred from the public is this on alignment.
Well, this is the preferred recommendation of DELDot.
You're setting yourself up, you're setting 113 up for failure because you're saying you're not going to do anything on 113. So that's going to automatically fall in your lap the way you want it, so that you have to do the blue route. Because 10, 15 years from now, you'll say, there's no way we can touch 113 because we've let it go like Route 1 over Rehoboth and Lewis. So that's, you know, it's a preconceived setup for failure for a corridor that we have that's still viable.
It's not, there's no setup, we've studied.
Can you tell us how much money was spent on the developer payouts to retain the property for the blue alternative that was never approved? How much money has the state spent to pay these developers for this? Has it been state money, federal money? It seems like this fits awfully nicely into this whole alignment thing, just sort of justifying all of those millions of dollars in payments you've already made. It just smells.
You know, I don't have those numbers right at my fingertips.
This blue route is still up and running, and I have copies for everybody because you really need to get to the public hearing. It is your only chance to become part of the permanent record with your opposition to this project. You may take written papers, you may speak, you may talk to a stenographer, but you must get there in order to try to squash this. My husband has 13 points of opposition against this project after his years on the working group. I have copies of that if you need help, you know, doing your research or getting this to the public hearing.
You would think that it wouldn't be our responsibility too, since we're not the ones that are building the road. You guys could also go and knock door to door, since if you're taking someone's house away from them, the least you could do is knock on their door and tell them, instead of sending something in the mail that likely isn't going to get there.